My name is Senator Carl Marcelino. I am the chairman of the Education Committee. We are here for a hearing on mayoral control. This is the second of two hearings. We held one up in Albany. Several groups testified, including the mayor and the chancellor. We were very pleased that they were there, and questions were asked, and many were answered. But many were given the answer that we don't have the answer at this point, and we will get back to you. For the most part, that has not happened. We have not heard back from the mayor's office on most of the questions that were asked and left unanswered at the last hearing. That's a disappointment, I'm sure, and I hope that those answers will be forthcoming. We have about a dozen questions or so, and there's about 10 that are still outstanding. We'll provide a list to the chancellor so that she can take it back with her to know that these questions we still would like to hear some answers to. Some answers to questions that appeared in some senators' offices late yesterday afternoon, which was interesting. But we are missing the mayor, and he's the chief player, and he's the person in charge, and we would like him to have been here. We understand he's busy. Everybody is. Everybody at this table is busy. We all have things we could be doing now in our districts, but we are here because this is an important issue. We're talking about the leadership of the largest school system in the state of New York, dealing with approximately 1.1 million children. And that's what this is all about, children. And that's what I want to stress here. We're asking these questions to find out if the children of the city of New York are being well served by their educational system. And that's important to us. I taught in the city of New York for 20 years, a former school teacher at Grover Cleveland High School. Long may it wave. And it was then, and it is now, still a functioning, vibrant school. And I recently visited with Chancellor Fariña, and we took a little tour of the building, reminiscent. I was still looking for some of my colleagues that I saw there way back when. But some of them have retired, some of them are still teaching, some of them moved on to other places. But the educational system and the process in dealing with the children is ongoing, and mayoral control is an integral part of that. It's still a relatively new experiment in education. It's not done everywhere. In some cities, they're looking at it, and in fact, in some cases, are reluctant to take it on because they're looking at New York and they're seeing what they consider to be a mixed bag of goods. So we're looking for answers today. My colleagues are here with me, and I'm pleased to be joined with Joe Addabbo. To my left, Senator Addabbo, Senator Simcha Felder, Senator Marty Golden, and Senator Tom Croce. Others will come and go as they can. Hearings are being held, meetings are being held throughout the day. People will come in later, people will leave. Hopefully we will get the list. We have several speakers on the list available to us to come who have volunteered to speak. And our first speaker of the day will be Carmen Fariña. Chancellor Fariña, please take the microphone.
Sitting next to me is Ursulina Ramirez, Chief of Staff and Chief Operating Officer, new title. Good morning, State Education Committee Chairperson Marcelino, Ranking Minority Leader Latimer, New York City Education Subcommittee Chairman Felder, members of the Senate Education Committee, and all the senators attending today.
With one correction, Chancellor, Senator Latimer could not be here, so Senator Addabbo is sitting in his stead.
Thank you. I'm grateful for the opportunity to testify on the importance of extending mayoral control of New York City schools. I also appreciate how many of you have worked closely with us to bring resources to your specific districts, and I look forward to continuing work together on the issues that are important to all of us. Mayoral control has given the people of New York City a clear person to hold accountable for the performance of their schools, and mayors have responded by giving our school system more attention and resources than ever. Mayoral control has created a stable, practical, efficient system where we don't have to worry that funding and resources that are there one year will be gone the next. This allows us to conceive of and execute long-term initiatives for supporting our students and schools. It has allowed me to select the best and brightest superintendents to lead our community education districts. Superintendents must now have 10 years of pedagogical experience, including at least 3 as a principal, and must have a record of success in advancing student learning and facilitating community involvement and input in schools. Also, it helps us with hiring and recruitment of people. Across this country, I'm getting resumes all the time, and they want to know that they're applying to a system that has certain goals and certain belief systems, and it's important that that be something that they apply to and then feel comfortable that they will be supported in. If you notice from my prepared speech, I've cut out a lot of it so we can get to the questions and answers. But perhaps the most, what?
Bless you.
I know this is a certain attention span that people have, including me, so I want to make sure that we get to the things that you're most concerned about. Perhaps the most important consideration, though, is whether or not mayoral control has had measurable impacts on student achievement. Anyone in search of proof need to look no further than the fact that under mayoral control, and this goes back to the Bloomberg years as well, more students than ever are graduating and fewer are dropping out. Last year, the year's four-year graduation topped 70%, and this also includes many of our English language learners as well as special ed students. And 70% is good, but it's certainly not better, and we want to make sure that we continue working on that to at least 80% or over. Mayor de Blasio came into office January 2014 with a commitment to provide New Yorkers with free, full-day, high-quality pre-K for all. Beginning of our first school year, we expanded pre-K to more than 53,000. There are more than 68,500 children right now in our pre-K. And I want to be clear that to me, it's not about the number, it's about the quality. When I visit schools, I look to see what is happening in these pre-Ks that may not have happened before. And first and foremost, there's a lot of talk going on in our English language learner schools. That's particularly important. There is at least a minimum of one parent engagement day per month. There are trained supervisors to work with these teachers so these teachers can develop their craft. And the question I've been asking over and over again is, how is kindergarten better this year because your students were in pre-K last year? And resoundingly from teachers, I'm hearing the kindergarten students have more stamina. They're able to focus. They come in with more language skills. That's the beauty of pre-K. I'm also proud of what we have accomplished for our English language learners. We created a standalone division for ELS and have been actively expanding innovative programs. Last year, we created 40 dual language programs, and this year we're opening 36 new dual language and bilingual programs. As a daughter of Spanish immigrants and a former English language learner myself, I know firsthand that strong education makes all the difference. Currently, there are more than 180 dual language programs in 150 schools throughout New York City, and they are in many languages: French, Haitian Creole, Polish. Got a request from one of the senators to do Albanian in one of our districts, and if we can find the students and the teachers, why not? Being a multilingual person is part of the New York City experience. This is why mayoral control is so important. It allows us to create and rapidly expand citywide solutions to the unique issues our students face. In serving English language learners and all students, we improved dramatically how the DOE communicates and engages with parents. Parents are partners in everything you do. This year alone, I have done over 100 town hall meetings. We have created meetings with CEC presidents on Saturdays rather during the week so we can pay more attention to major issues. And also, our parent engagement office has been increased with personnel so we can have more translations. And this year we have even created a grandparents advisory group, because we're finding in certain parts of the city that grandparents are actually raising the students, and it's really important that we help them hone their skills. We're thinking outside the box. With student-led conferences, we've increased our parent attendance at schools by 38% this year, and student-led conferences allow students to articulate their academic progress to their families, and they sit at the parent-teacher conference with their parents, often as translators, but more often than that, actually being able to explain in their own words what they need more help in. Recently, I was in a 4th grade class where the teacher was explaining to the parent that there are certain days of the week the child doesn't do the homework as well as they should, and the child actually said to the mother, "See, I told you, you overprogram me on Wednesdays." And having a child hear what he or she needs to do better, to me, is more important than just a lot of things being said that don't have impact. We cannot be successful without meaningful, sustained parent engagement at a variety of levels. We have added 40 minutes for parent engagement every single week. First 4 months of this year, attendance increased 38%. And thanks to our multilingual Raise Your Hand campaign, more parents have run for their seats in their local education councils. In 2013, just 729 parents applied. Last year, we saw nearly 1,300 parents apply, an increase of 75%. We are investing $23 million more in arts education each year. We now have the highest number of art teachers in a decade, and 22,000 more students across 113 middle and high schools are receiving arts instruction. I want to say about the arts, it's always been very close to me and something I'm passionate about. And this year we also started something called Teen Thursdays, where all the museums in the city of New York actually host teenagers, and any of you who lived with a teenager know that hosting teenagers after school in groups of 30 to 60 is not the easiest thing in the world. And many of our cultural institutions had embraced this to the degree that the Metropolitan Museum has hosted 4,000 teenagers on Fridays through their museums, mostly studying American history. We have hired 250 new guidance counselors to support students, and we recently created new third-grade gifted and talented classes opening next year in in the districts in the city that didn't have them, 7, 12, 16, and 23. And in this development, all districts will have at least one program. These initiatives and many others like them came, of course, because of parent and community input. But mayoral control, it was made it possible to implement them so quickly. The investment in the arts was made with city money. The expansion of guidance services was made by the city's commitment. Without mayoral control and support of this mayor, these initiatives would not have happened. Mayoral control also allows us to plan more fully and with more confidence for the future. Without mayoral control, it would be nearly impossible for a mayor to lay out a long-term, detailed vision for our schools, such as equity and excellence. Equity and Excellence is a program that I believe totally in. This Saturday, we're having a conference at which almost 1,000 school leaders and CEC members will be attending to see it laid out in workshops, principal to principal. Universal Literacy Program places reading coaches and teachers with experience who will be trained over the summer in ultimately Never Elementary School right now in 4 districts in the city. Algebra for All, AP for All, Computer Science for All seeks to provide students with skills and courses that they need to be successful in today's colleges, but also in the job market of the future. College Access for All middle schools will provide students earlier exposure to college, while College Access for All high school will ensure our students have access to the resources they need to pursue a path to college. Yesterday, I attended a college fair in City Council Member Comrie's district, and I did a survey about how many students there will be the first in their families to go to college, and an overwhelming number, almost 60%, will be the first. So there are lots of challenges, not only to get into college, but to stay in college and to make families understand the importance of that. All students, regardless of what type of school they attend, deserve to benefit from the combined knowledge of our supremely talented and gifted teachers. The district charter program will pair district and charter school together to foster strong relationships and the sharing of best practices. I went to visit a program yesterday that has a strong relation in Brooklyn with a middle school and a charter school in the same building where they're doing reading buddies with each other. We have done strong partnerships also with Uncommon Schools Network, which now does training for some of our teachers and principals on teacher feedback. We believe that support like this is key to helping our most disadvantaged students thrive. This is the philosophy we've used in our approach toward supporting and improving struggling schools. The Renewal Schools program, another cohesive citywide program, is only possible because of mayoral control. Focuses on supporting schools and students while providing clear academic benchmarks. It's really important to understand that the Commissioner, Mary Ellen Lyer, has actually been visiting our 27 persistently struggling schools and has been impressed by the amount of resources we put in the schools, the amount of training we're giving these teachers, and also by the amount of leadership that we've had to change in some of these schools to make sure the schools are successful. In these particular schools, we have training, we've extended learning time by an hour each day, we've given them very targeted resources, and also we are sure that we are visiting them on a regular basis to ensure that the work that's happening is of high level. We've seen real progress. 70% of renewal schools have increased their graduation rates, up from 50% a year ago. We have been able to achieve this in large part with working with our partners to ensure that the schools have access to our best principals. We are receiving whatever support they need. The program is also showing success in terms of parent engagement, and something that we are particularly proud of, that they are visiting each other and actually seeing wonderful processes in all the schools. Together we have made remarkable progress. We have so much work ahead. To continue building on the critical progress we've made and to confidently plan on a scale that's necessary, I ask you to consider at least a 3-year extension of mayoral control. As someone who has proudly dedicated my entire life to education, I know this is necessary for students to thrive. As a veteran of 4 different New York City public school systems, I know what works and what didn't work. I was part of the original centralization model where you got a number, and based on your number, you got assigned to a school or a principalship regardless of whether you were the right person for that school. I was a superintendent under decentralization and knew that sometimes even appointing a principal to a school took 2 years because of the politics involved. I was a regional superintendent, which I also understand had some really strong value to it, but ultimately maybe not the consistency, because if you were in a school in the Bronx, there was a big difference what was expected of you from a school perhaps in Brooklyn. On behalf of all our students, parents, families, educators, our city, and its future, I thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today and ask you to allow us to continue to do what works.
Thank you. We've been joined by Senator Toby Stavitsky coming to join us, and let me start off with a multi-part question. I'm going to ask it one, and perhaps you could address it. Recently, in one of the newspapers, local newspapers, the New York Post, there was an article which quoted Police Commissioner Bratton telling the parents of students to pat your kids down before they leave the house because they're picking up weapons in the schools. There's been according to the article, approximately a 26% increase in the amount of weapons found in the schools, and he felt that the parents should be checking the kids before they leave the house. I don't remember in 20-plus years of teaching anybody ever saying anything like that before, telling the parents to pat the kids down and check them for weapons as they leave their houses. I think that's a bit much. But if it's true that there has been an increase in the amount of weapons seized, I'd like to know the reason why and what are we doing about it to stop it. The schools, I've heard you've been quoted recently as you're closing a particular school and you want to close a few more are coming. If we're working so well, how many schools are going to be closed? Where are they located? Why are they being closed? These are questions I think that have to be answered, and we'd like some of those answers now. If you can give them, and if not, we'd like to see answers come to us as quickly as possible. We gave you a list of the questions that were not answered in the prior hearing. Those are ones we consider the most important. There were several others that we just didn't think were that significant to warrant a rehash, but the list has been provided. We hope that some of those answers can come to us in a timely way. But I would like the answer to the questions about the school closures and the potential for violence and weapons in the schools, because that to me is extremely significant protection of both the students and the staff, the teaching staff in the buildings. I don't know that a firing of a principal is going to resolve that problem.
Well, first and foremost, let me take on the school closures. I was certainly here under the prior administration when schools were closed, and in many cases, not with a lot of community input. We're looking at schools closures a little differently, and I'm looking at it from the point of view is what's too small to succeed. When I came on board, we had almost 100 schools that had less than 150 students in them. As you know, you cannot give resources to students in schools that don't have a guidance counselor or after-school program, and those numbers don't generate the resources. I will tell you that as having done this all my life, that I know anything less than 300 or a little bit more, middle schools don't allow you to have the certified teachers, the after-school program. So we looked at school closures from 2 points of view. Does it make sense in this particular neighborhood that there are other equally good or much better schools that these students could be moved to, which is exactly what we did, to ensure that the students now are in a place where they have the resources they need. So school closure, this year we did 3 school closures, with one, I believe, happening now, and next year probably not many more than that. But before we close the school, we have community meetings, we visit the schools, we talk to the principals, and in every single case we also work with the affiliated unions in terms of if these are principals who we have another opening for, we move them. But you can't, we had schools with 67 kids, we had a school with 24 kids.
But why would that be? If there's schools within the immediate area, if these are elementary schools, most of the parents or the kids who live in the outlying community would be going to that school.
Not necessarily.
So they have choice and they're walking with their feet?
Well, partially, but that wasn't the major thing. We had a high school with 40 kids. because they were allowed to stay open and no one was applying there. That was an enrollment issue. In middle schools, we had a lot of schools that was set up around specialty themes, but you had 4 or 5 middle schools in the same building, and one school didn't have the resources. So we're not only closing, we're also merging and consolidating. This year, we had 25 schools that we merged and consolidated into 12 schools. Again, lots of neighborhood community input, but the idea was to increase the resources for the students and give the students more choice in the curriculum areas. And again, we visit communities, we give them choices. In one particular middle school that had the 67 students, we gave parents a choice of other schools in the neighborhood that they could apply to make sure there's no disruption. In the past, what happens, instead of saying closures, you do what we called phase-outs. And phase-outs meant that you gave them 4 years' notice that a school was going to close, and you let the students, over time, leave the building. And that actually was much more problematic, because when teachers got wind of a phase-out, the good teachers, in many cases, ran to open market to go somewhere else. And also, a lot of parents lost faith in the school because they knew over time it was not going to be there. So I do think closing and giving parents options is the right way to go for schools that are too small to succeed. And I think also with mergers and consolidations, it's how do 2 schools together. I'll give you an example of middle schools in the Bronx. There are 4 schools in the building. 2 of them are doing quite well, 1 not so well. And the reality is it had maybe 150 students. There's plenty of capability to stay in the same building and work with one of the other principals and ensure that those students now, which they didn't before, have full after-school programs, become part of a community school program, which is in that building. So for me, it's all about the kids. What works better for the students, and the mergers, consolidations work. As far as Commissioner Bratton's statement, I was with Commissioner Bratton actually yesterday. I don't even remember. We had a team-up day where we went to schools around the city to talk about, NYPD and principals and teachers working better together. I think the one thing he and I agree, that parents have to take some responsibilities. I don't think I would use the expression tap down, but, a lot of the weapons that are coming to schools, particularly in high school, are coming from homes. And if parents have weapons in their homes, keeping them under lock and key, to me, seems like a parental responsibility, and I think that's important. As far as safety is concerned in the schools, and I visit a lot of schools, I don't feel our schools are not safe. You always will have a few kids who do something they shouldn't do. But in terms of the weapons that are in our schools, they are generally confiscated quickly, and again, parents get called in, and then the students have to take responsibility for what they've done.
What happens to a kid who has a weapon?
Well, it depends on the issue and the type of weapon. They're suspended, and there's a whole process that has to be done. And then, of course, the parents are always called, and some kind of repercussion takes place. It depends on the school's particular issue and what the child did with the weapon, or in some cases didn't do anything, was just caught through the scanning process.
Notice we've been joined by Senator Peralta and Senator Perkins also. Thank you for coming. All right, I will pass the baton on to Senator Addabbo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, let me thank you and your staff for organizing this hearing today, and I do appreciate when you say that the focus is about the children and about the system, and I totally agree. It should always be about the children and the system or the structure. So, Chancellor, thank you very much for being here today as well. And if we can focus on the system or the structure, because back in 2002, when I was in the City Council, and Mayor Bloomberg at the time had this idea about mayoral control, I actually thought it was problematic about the name being called mayoral control. Because if you think about it, when we do our streets, it's not mayor control of our streets or roadways, it's Department of Transportation. And so the mayor's control over our schools should be considered the Department of Education, not mayoral control. Actually, should be local government of schools, or local control. So that being said, let's take the consideration, the hypothetical, that if the state legislature did not do anything, if it was to lapse come June, and we no longer have the Department of Ed or mayoral control, or government control of our schools, talk us through what you think would be the ramifications for our children if we were to go back to the old Board of Ed or some other structure.
I would say it's probably going to be a nightmare, but I'll try to temper that a little bit. I think who makes ultimate decisions, you need someone to be accountable. And you need someone, and to some degree, it's happening already. Who do you point a finger at? People don't call you when you're doing a good job and say thank you very much. But I do think it's important to say, okay, this is the person that I'm holding accountable. These are the things they've said publicly they're going to stand for, and tick off the boxes as they do it. We said we were going to do pre-K. We said we were going to do middle school after school. We said we were going to do a higher rate of high school graduates. Those are all things we put on our agenda to get done, and that's what I believe we have accomplished. I think for me personally, in terms of being a chancellor, it means, and I don't even know what the legality would be, if we go back to a board, it means you have to convince X number of people to vote and have a unanimous vote or a majority vote on the issues you want to do, which to some degree is going to necessarily slow us up on some of the things we want to do. I remember as a school board member, and as a superintendent, and actually Mayor de Blasio was on my school board, that I had to meet with every member of the school board one-on-one to convince them about some of the things that we wanted to do. And it took maybe 3 or 4 months, and then ultimately nobody agreed with anybody, so we didn't get some of these things done. So to me, I do think it's going to slow the process. I do think that the satisfaction of principals and teachers overall in the city is high. This is the highest it's ever been. We've done our own internal surveys. And having people who are satisfied with their profession and working hard at what they do, I think is crucial. I think the other thing we've done differently now than we did before is that we have a lot more support where local officials and parents have access to superintendents. One of the things that's different now than was in 2002, the hierarchy is very clear. It's the mayor, then it's me, then it's my superintendents, and we now have 44 superintendents who have a geographical neighborhood, so many of you already know who your superintendents are. You know who you can call if there's an issue. Those superintendents have all these principals accountable for them, and all of them are educators, which was not necessarily true in the past. So I think we have a system that holds accountability, that has stability, and that's evaluated. I evaluate all my superintendents on several things. One, how much they've engaged parents in their decision-making, how much they've evaluated principals to make sure principals are doing the right job. I'm just finishing my one-on-one interview with every single superintendent that works for me, and I've asked them what's working, what's not working, what would you like to see changed a little bit, and then also what are you proudest of. Those are the questions every one of them has to answer. And if they're not mentioning parent engagement in some form or another, then I worry. And if they're not talking about professional development, which really did not exist a lot in the past, I don't feel we're moving in the right direction.
And just in this hypothetical other structure, should mayor control expire, is it your understanding that this new structure comes about the September of 2016? Does it come about mid-year, starting January 2017? What is your understanding about possibly a new structure for our children?
Well, the mayoral control ends at the end of this June, so I'm assuming, unless there's another way around it, that July 1st. And keep in mind that even under Bloomberg, you had a month at one time where there was at the time, it turned out being temporary, but nobody knew it at the time. And you had people, I guess, from the borough president's office representing, but no decisions were generally made at that time because it was like a standstill kind of clock. And that's, I have a sense of urgency around this job. I did not come to do this job at this stage of my life where I want to take things slowly, unless it's something obviously that requires some legal looking into. I want to make sure that every child in New York City is getting the education that's going to make them the citizens of tomorrow. So to have anything that stops us from doing the work, I would find very detrimental.
It has been mentioned that the mayor is not here today. You have about
If
12.
he's here, could he raise his hand?
He might come in. We have about 12 session days left up in Albany. Of course, we can call special session, all that stuff. But let's say we're working with the 12 calendar session days. What is your strategy over those next 12 days or so with the mayor, coming back to Albany, answering questions, having meetings? What is the strategy from here to convince the state Senate that mayoral control should be extended?
To do my job as best as I can day after day. I have been to Albany many times this year. I have met many of you one-on-one. I have now meetings for the next month, one-on-one, with a lot of our city council members. My job is to stay focused on the kids and what they need to do in their classrooms. I have it saying the answer is always in the classroom, but I do think that by listening to constituents, and again, elected officials being constituents, I think it's really important to say, well, what's working for you, what's not. So my job is to do what I know best to do, which is educating kids.
We do appreciate your dedication to our children, and again, I want to say thank you. I guess part of that question was, does the mayor plan on coming back to Albany for these meetings, for these negotiations, for these, again, private meetings with leadership, but does he plan on coming back to Albany?
Well, again, the mayor was there for over 4 hours, as I was, sitting next to him. After those 4 hours, we then met with the assembly, which over 100 people were in that particular room. Then we met with individual interest groups that asked to meet with us. So we were there an entire day, and from 6 in the morning till almost 5 o'clock that afternoon. Any senator or even city council member who's asked for private meetings with me has received them. And I've met with caucuses. We went up with the Black and Latino caucus as well. So I do think we've made ourselves extremely accessible. And in terms of his particular schedule, I do not want to answer for him. But like I said, for me, my job is to work in the city with the schools and the leaders of the schools as much as I can.
And last question, I may have others, but I do want my colleagues to have an opportunity to speak to. With the expiration of practically anything, we have the opportunity to improve. That gives us this opportunity to have this kind of conversation and hopefully improve the structure for our children educationally. Now, late Tuesday evening, the Assembly voted for a straight extender. In your opinion, in talking about the opportunity to improve, do you think there's this opportunity, instead of just a straight extender, to make these improvements for parents, input, relevancy of the CECs or PEP or administrators and teachers? We have this opportunity to improve our current structure, all for the sake of our children. Do you see not only this opportunity for improvement, but maybe what improvements might you even suggest?